What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So starting off, this upcoming week is going to be a big one because we do have a lot of big data. There's been some pretty big developments over the weekend that I'll share with you, but it is a shorter week. So Monday, the market is closed on a FYI. So first trading day is going to be on Tuesday. So that most likely it's going to be a reflection day on everything that's been happening. And you can kind of tell that the market was somewhat fearful going into this long weekend, only because there was this dip during power hour, not just with SoFi, but across the board. And usually that does happen when there's a certain element of unknown. So ultimately on Tuesday, we do have ADP, which previously did come in at 11.5, which was pretty bullish. But aside from that, the market's going to be digesting Greenland. Luckily enough, there's been no Iran updates or any escalations for that. But for this, it looks like Trump, effective February the 1st, is going to be hitting Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, UK, Netherlands, and Finland with a 10% tariff. And I believe it's in June, raising that to 25%. In response, you're seeing the EU reportedly suspending trade with the US. So market is going to be digesting all of that. You even have Jim Cramer coming out saying that Monday or Tuesday is going to be kind of a very, very red day. So yeah, I think the market's going to be digesting all that. Of course, there's still some time for things to kind of fix and be rectified. So it might not be so damaging, but still, I think the market's going to be kind of digesting all that. On Wednesday, we have mortgage applications, mortgage market index. So of course, as per the Feds, that's a hot topic. So we'll have to kind of watch that because last data that did come out was absolutely amazing. So a lot of positive data, which in general, the market kind of doesn't and does like somewhat. Right now, I think the market has fully realized that a cut for the upcoming January 28th meeting isn't going to occur. Most likely, all of this data is going to be really moving the expectations for March. So just on an FYI. But Thursday we have GDP and PCE as well as initial jobless claims. So that one will be the big day for data points. And then on Friday we have a lot of flash data. So we have composite manufacturing services as well as Michigan consumer sentiment. So we have a lot of big data this week, plus a lot of big companies putting out their earnings. So we have Netflix, Intel, and many others. We've seen in the past both companies really move the broader market. So again, just keep that in mind. So that's going to be a very fun week. So for those of you that were kind of hoping for cheaper prices, you never know, you might get that. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to the data. When it comes to SoFi in specific, there really isn't anything planned. So we're basically 2 weeks away from their earnings. And historically, this is where some analysts usually start giving some ratings, but we oddly had that done earlier on this past week. So I don't know how many we will be getting, but in theory, this is the epiphany that analysts get, that they realize that they need to give some ratings on SoFi. So again, that could really impact SoFi in a positive or negative, depending on kind of what comes out. Most of the bears, oddly enough, already gave their ratings about a week and a half ago. So I don't know if they will kind of reiterate their negative stance. Of course, I think the whole purpose of that is just for manipulation, but moral of the story, there really isn't anything planned specific to SoFi for this week. Looking at shorts going into this week, 9.51% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 117 million shares overall being shorted. So still see some signs of naked shorting, and cost to borrow minimum is negative again. So negative 0.18. That's an annual rate, not a daily rate. So it's nothing significant by any means, but still kind of signals that there's a broker out there paying people pennies, but still it's kind of the purpose. Aside from that, with it closing at $26, that does mean that the 26 and below strike prices are in the money. So you have 47,000 at the 25, 6,000 at the 26, and so forth and so forth. I've already covered this in my Friday video. Ultimately around 114,000 options in the money. Unfortunately, we didn't really see any transactions on the actual dark pool above $100,000 to kind of signal that market makers were covering. On the secondary market, we did see one big transaction, 27.2, but nothing really to cover all of these options. So it is fair to assume that possibly we might be seeing a nice little gamma squeeze on Tuesday. So maybe that might offset the potential kind of sell-off that the market might occur or might happen. When it comes down to the bulls for this upcoming week, you see a consensus for it to be roughly between that 26 and 27. And bears are anticipating for it to be kind of between that 24.50 and 25. So definitely a little bit more oriented towards the downside. With it at 26.13, unfortunately Friday did break below a key support. And so pretty much all last week, I think it was tested like 3 or 4 times. This 26.30 held up like a champ, unfortunately, until Friday. So that is going to be the next strong resistance point. And then 25.39 followed by 23.93 is going to be support level. So for those of you that want a dollar cost average, swing trade, just kind of watch for that. Aside from all of that fun stuff on the actual chart, even going into this week, things weren't looking too great. And for those of you that are new to the channel, I'm not here to BS you. There's more than enough individuals out there just saying that SoFi is going to the moon next week and blah, blah, blah. Based on the technicals, it's really showing some signs of it wanting to break down. So again, just kind of be aware of that. And that's before pretty much everything that I just mentioned that's going to impact the broader market. The technicals were already looking negative prior to that. So right now it is below the 50, 100, and also 10-day moving averages. The next real one right here is going to be that 200-day moving average sitting at 22.03. I like to say that is off the table, but you never know. We've seen, especially back in April, the magnitude of kind of the market and how things could really, really escalate very fast. Not saying that this is going to occur and we're going to get to this price point again, but we are definitely very high in comparison, and the market doesn't like uncertainty. And you have to keep in mind as well that the market is always forward looking. It likes to have and be aware of the next big catalyst. And now that we don't have that January cut, we're kind of left twiddling our thumbs a little bit up until March. So from now until March, any negative, the market might really blow it out of proportion, if that kind of makes sense. Aside from that though, stochastic RSI is at 17, so very oversold. So if there's a good piece of news that does come out specific to SoFi, or let's say GDP, PCE, they all come in phenomenal, then that could be enough to really cause a nice push higher, nice recovery. But looking at the market position right here, you don't really see that much willing buyers. You see some up till around that 25.90, but that is pretty much it. So this is where, again, you could see some extreme volatility this week. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Are you buying more? Are you selling? Do you think that everything is just overdone right now? Like, what's your kind of honest opinion? Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend, and for the Americans, good long weekend. One final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, pop over to my Patreon and put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.